What is this called in English? Lion. For example, the lion is known as the king of the jungle. What is this called in English? Tiger. For example, a tiger has black stripes on its orange fur. What is this called in English? Elephant. For example, an elephant uses its trunk to drink water. What is this called in English? Giraffe. For example, the giraffe is the tallest animal in the world. What is this called in English? Monkey. For example, we saw a monkey swinging from a tree. What is this called in English? Bear. For example, a grizzly bear can be very dangerous. What is this called in English? Wolf. For example, the wolf howled at the full moon. What is this called in English? Fox. For example, a cunning fox stole a chicken from the farm. What is this called in English? Deer. For example, we saw a deer grazing in the forest. What is this called in English? Zebra. For example, the zebra has black and white stripes. What is this called in English? Hippopotamus. For example, the hippopotamus spends most of its time in the water. What is this called in English? Rhinoceros. For example, a rhinoceros has a large horn on its snout. What is this called in English? Crocodile. For example, the crocodile lay quietly on the riverbank. What is this called in English? Leopard. For example, the leopard is famous for its spotted coat. What is this called in English? Cheetah. For example, the cheetah is the fastest land animal. What is this called in English? Kangaroo. For example, a baby kangaroo is called a joey. What is this called in English? Koala. For example, the koala is a marsupial native to Australia. What is this called in English? Panda. For example, the giant panda's diet consists mainly of bamboo. What is this called in English? Camel. For example, a camel can survive for a long time without water. What is this called in English? Gorilla. For example, the gorilla is a large, powerful primate. What is this called in English? Chameleon. For example, a chameleon can change its color to blend in with its surroundings. What is this called in English? Jaguar. For example, the jaguar is a large cat native to the Americas. What is this called in English? Cougar. For example, the cougar is also known as a mountain lion. What is this called in English? Bobcat. For example, the bobcat is a small wild cat with a short tail. What is this called in English? Lynx. For example, the lynx has long legs and tufts of hair on its ears. What is this called in English? Moose. For example, the moose is the largest species of deer. What is this called in English? Bison. For example, Herds of bison once roamed the plains of North America. What is this called in English? Coyote? For example, the coyote howled in the distance. What is this called in English? Hyena. For example, hyenas are often found hunting in packs. What is this called in English? Gazelle. For example, the gazelle is a graceful and fast antelope. What is this called in English? Antelope. For example, we saw a herd of antelope running across the savannah. What is this called in English? Warthog. For example, a warthog has large tusks that curve upwards. What is this called in English? Otter. For example, the playful otter was swimming in the river. What is this called in English? Beaver. For example, beavers are known for building dams. What is this called in English? Badger. For example, the badger dug a deep burrow to live in. What is this called in English? Armadillo. For example, an armadillo has a shell-like armor covering its body. What is this called in English? Raccoon. For example, the raccoon is a nocturnal animal. What is this called in English? Skunk. For example, the skunk can spray a foul-smelling liquid to defend itself. What is this called in English? Porcupine. For example, a porcupine is covered in sharp quills. What is this called in English? Sloth. For example, the sloth moves very slowly. What is this called in English? Anteater. For example, the anteater uses its long tongue to catch insects. What is this called in English? Lemur. For example, the lemur is a primate found on the island of Madagascar. What is this called in English? Baboon. For example, the baboon is a large monkey with a dog-like face. What is this called in English? Orangutan. For example, orangutans are known for their reddish-brown hair. What is this called in English? Ostrich. For example, the ostrich is the world's largest living bird. What is this called in English? Cobra. For example, the cobra is a venomous snake. What is this called in English? Python. For example, the python constricts its prey to kill it.